Hi, and welcome to part 2 of our Northeast PCA video series on autocross. In this segment, we will cover autocross rules and driving technique. If you are thinking about participating in autocross for the first time, this will help you get up to speed more quickly. Remember, like many things, it takes time and practice to become good at it. So let's start with seating position. When you get in the car, adjust your seat forward or back so that when you press in the clutch or brake, if you have an automatic, you can fully engage them. Second is to adjust your steering wheel or your seat rest back so that when you put your hands across the wheel, your wrists drape over. When you get ready to drive, put your hands at 9 and 3 on the steering wheel. This will avoid you from shuffle steering or having to cross your hands and will make your drive much smoother.
Now let's look at the course. At first, you will be looking at a sea of cones and wonder how to find the right path, so it's important to learn the different cone configurations and to always look ahead at what's coming next. Reading the course can seem difficult to the novice autocrosser, but it's a critical step to develop and will quickly become easier with experience. Drive up to the start cone when instructed by the volunteer worker. It's important to stop exactly at the cone. Timing starts when you pass the yellow timing gate, so you'll want to get a good launch to maximize your speed at the gate while looking ahead to the first cone configuration. Once you get the signal from the worker, accelerate rapidly to start your lap. Here we have a clamshell configuration. A clamshell consists of a pointer and center cone, and a few opposing cones acting as a sort of a curved gate. Drive between the center and opposing cones. Now we get to a slalom. If there is a pointer cone at the start of the slalom needs to be driven starting in the direction indicated by the pointer cone. Otherwise, the slalom is known as optional, which means it's your choice whether to start going right or left of the first cone, then alternate going to the right and left of the cones. Try each direction on subsequent runs to find which is best for you. Often, the best way to enter a slalom is determined by the optimum line out of the slalom to reach the next gate. Here we have a cone and pointer cone, and a few useless cones just here to mess with you. The cone that's lying down is pointing to the direction you should drive around the cone. Remember to look ahead at what's coming next. Here we have a six-pack. It's basically like 3 gates in a row. Just drive through the six-pack and keep looking ahead. Okay, let's keep going. Clamshell, 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 six-pack, six-pack, pointer cones, pointer cones, pointer cones, clamshell, directional slalom. Now we have a gate. Just drive between the 2 cones. Another gate. Here we have the dreaded Chicago box. This is essentially a 3-cone slalom with a lot more cones to confuse you, but remember, it is still just a 3-cone slalom. Clamshell, directional slalom, clamshell, clamshell, directional slalom, clamshell, pointer cones. Here is a sweeper. The entry is defined by the pointer cone, and we arc the car through, making sure to stay between the outside wall and inner pointer cone as we find our sweeper exit, which in this case is a 6-pack. Directional slalom, 6-pack. Now we're almost at the finish. Your lap ends when you pass the yellow timing gate. Keep maximum speed until you pass the gate. Then brake hard to slow down to paddock speed and drive back to your spot on the starting grid for your next lap. Don't stop here as a car is coming at speed not far behind you. As you start becoming familiar with reading the course and increasing your speed, you will also want to familiarize yourself with car dynamics, which will allow you to progress further. First, let's talk about tire traction. Your tires are the only thing connecting your car to the pavement, so whether you are accelerating, braking, or turning, you're trying to find the limit of friction your tires offer. If you ask too much of the tire, it will lose traction and the tires will start slipping, wasting precious time and making you lose control of the car. If you are not at the limit, you are not maximizing your competitive advantage. The amount of grip your tires offer is dependent on many factors, including the tire compound and air pressure, the type of pavement, ambient temperature, the surface area of the tire in contact with the pavement, and the vertical load on the tires coming from the weight of the car and aerodynamic downforce. For any particular set of conditions, there will be a maximum amount of friction available, and you'll want to use as much of it as possible to maximize your speed around the course. You can think of it as a grip budget. If you use 100% of the grip to accelerate, you cannot also try to turn, or you would exceed your budget and the car would start to skid. So as you approach a corner and brake to negotiate the turn, you have to reduce your demand on braking as you start making demand on lateral grip for the turn. By the time you are making maximum demand on lateral grip for the turn, you should no longer accelerate or brake, and as you unwind the steering wheel to exit the corner, you can start applying more gas as the demand on lateral grip is reduced, then use 100% of the grip for acceleration once the car is pointing in a straight line. One way to think about it is to imagine that your accelerator is connected to your steering wheel. The more you turn the wheel, the less gas you should apply, and as you straighten the wheel, start applying gas until the wheel is straight and you're at full throttle. Another factor affecting grip is weight transfer. When you brake, the weight of the car is shifted towards the front, increasing the contact patch and load on the front tires and decreasing it on the rear tires, which will increase traction for turn-in, and the lightness of the rear of the car will also help it rotate as the rear of the car will have a tendency to want to continue straight while the front is turning. During the turn, the weight of the car will transfer to the outside tires while the inside tires will have less traction. Accelerating at the exit of the turn will transfer the weight to the rear of the car, which is good news for a rear-wheel drive car as you will get additional traction, and not so good news for front-wheel drive cars as the tires will be begging for more traction. Obviously, you want to use weight transfer to your advantage, so the best way to keep the car balanced is to drive smoothly, meaning applying all inputs as slowly and as little as possible without abrupt changes. Weight transfer and your car's particular weight balance contribute to understeer and oversteer. A car is known to understeer or push when the front tires have less grip than the rears, which causes the car to want to go straight during a turn, effectively following a greater turning radius than intended from your steering input. A car oversteers or is loose when the rear tires have less traction than the fronts, causing the rear of the car to slide while the front of the car is turning, causing the car to rotate more than intended and possibly spin. So once again, the best way to balance the car and keep it pointed where you want to go is to be smooth with all your inputs to avoid abrupt changes in weight transfer, especially when at the limit of traction. The fastest way around the course is not always the shortest, as going from cone to cone may require abrupt turns that would slow you down, so you want to find the smoothest line, which will allow you to carry as much speed as possible, even if it means using a bit more track than the layout suggests. First, let's look at a typical turn. Although it would be intuitive to think the shortest path is the fastest, the shortest line creates a turn with a very small radius. The smaller the radius, the less speed you'll be able to carry at the limit of grip. So a faster way to negotiate the turn will generally be by creating the widest radius possible. This means starting close to the outside of the turn, braking while the car is straight, then turning in to meet the apex and unwinding the wheel to exit on the outside as power is applied progressively. Once the car is pointing straight, you should be at full throttle. A technique known as late apex is also very effective. Here we brake a little later, which allows us to carry speed longer before the turn, then turn and meet the apex a little later than the earlier geometric curve, allowing us to straighten the car sooner and apply power sooner. On the other hand, early apex is to be avoided. If you start your turn in towards the apex too early, you will then need to rotate the car much more, forcing you to slow down at the precise moment where you should be accelerating, or worse, sending you off track. Since the autocross track limits are only indicated with cones rather than pavement, the fastest line can be more difficult to visualize. Here's a simple autocross course consisting of 3 clamshells. Novices will tend to drive from one clamshell to the next, following what seems to be the most direct way, but as you can see, this creates very tight turns. So in order to create a line that is as straight and smooth as possible, we will compromise some distance in order to carry more speed and ultimately post a better time.